Welcome back to another episode of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast, powered by ISOFIT and Firefly Recovery. ISOFIT is my go-to for all things isometric strength training. For more on ISOFIT, be sure to check out isofit.com. Episodes like this are made possible by Firefly, the official recovery provider of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast. For more on Firefly, be sure to check out recoveryfirefly.com. This episode is powered by Dr. Ray Gorman, founder of Engage Movement. Learn how to boost your income without relying on sessions. Get a free training on the blended practice model by following at Ray Gorman DPT on Instagram. Joining me today is Tenly Kuhn. Tenly and I are going to dive into her journey surrounding pole vault, her background in gymnastics, and so many other things along the way. This was a phenomenal episode, and I really appreciate Tenly's time. I really enjoyed learning more about her as a person in addition to her athletics career, and I know you will too. Enjoy. Henley, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to work with you today. For people who aren't familiar with you, or maybe they haven't heard about your incredible backstory as it relates to sport that way, would you mind filling in a little bit about who you are and all the amazing things you've got going on?
Sure, yeah. Hey, my name is Tenly Kuhn, and I'm currently on the track and field team at Baylor University. I'm a pole vaulter, and I joined the team in fall of 2022 as a walk-on, and now I'm heading to my first outdoor nationals this year, so I'm super excited for that.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like you're incredibly successful, and huge shout out to all the amazing stuff that you've been able to accomplish in the track and field space, that way in particular around pole vault. But as you mentioned, it sounds like your path to track and field with Baylor is a little unique that way. You mentioned you walked onto the team. And a lot of the times when I talk with athletes, they're under the impression that they're going to get recruited somewhere, go there for sport that way, and then they're, off to the races from there. Tell me a little bit more about your path getting into track and field at Baylor that way, because from what I remember, you have a kind of unique backstory around that.
Yeah, so I used to be a gymnast and I did gymnastics for about 5 or 6 years. And it finally got to the point where my back was hurting so bad that I genuinely just couldn't do it anymore. So I decided to stop doing that freshman year of high school. And then sophomore year, COVID happened. So everything was pretty much shut down. I couldn't do anything or try any new sports. And then junior, my parents were like, "Oh, like you should try track." And I was like, "I hate running. Why would I do that?" And they're like, "No, but you've always been fast, so just try it." I was like, "Okay." So then I joined the track team, and the head coach found out that I used to do gymnastics. He was like, "You should try pole vaulting." And I was like, "Honestly, anything to get me out of running." So I tried pole vaulting, and yeah, it just ended up going well. I mean, my body awareness and strength and everything from gymnastics really just helped out with learning how to pole vault pretty fast. And then senior year, I got into Baylor on my own, and my coach ended up just reaching out to the track coach and being like, "Hey, I have this girl. She's jumped this high. Would she be able to be on your team?" They let me come on an unofficial visit, and I loved it there. So the rest is really history.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so great to hear. I mean, first off, it sounds like gymnastics, every time I talk with people about it, they eventually start to tell me that, back hurts, things hurt, that sort of thing. It's a sport of the extremes. And I think that's what makes gymnastics so impressive to me is just how elegant and artistic you make all these legit complicated things. And I think to your point, it probably does carry over well to pole vault because I think about the sport of pole vault, just running full speed towards this like little pit thing, and you're going to stick a pole in the ground, fly through the air, do some kind of flip while you're in the air, and somehow land on this like cool little mat thing that way. Like there's a little bit of that element of body control, body awareness, but still artistic movement in nature, I think, that kind of bleeds over from gymnastics into pole vault that way. So I think that's really impressive. How did you get into gymnastics in the first place that way? What got you involved there?
Yeah, well, I have always loved tumbling. Just as a kid, I loved doing like flips and tricks and stuff on the grass. So my parents were like, "Let's get you into a tumbling class." I was like, "Okay, that's fine." I did it when I was super young, and I honestly am originally from Nevada, and I did it when I was very little. I also did competitive cheer when I was younger, but I didn't love the whole stunting thing because people were dropping me on my head and that was not fun. So I was like, can I do this but just like the tumbling part? And so when we moved to California, my parents just found a random tumbling class to put me in. And then they were talking to other coaches, found some gym that had trampoline and tumbling, which is the type of gymnastics I ended up doing. And I was like, that sounds so fun, an actual competitive place where I can jump on a trampoline and tumble. Like it was so perfect fit for me. And yeah, my dad just happened to stumble upon the gym that I ended up training at for 5 years. So
That's amazing. It just kind of fell together, fell into place that way. And
yeah.
funny, as you're talking about the transition to track and field and the intro to track and field that way, you mentioned about the running thing. And I feel like you probably get this a lot. People are like, "Oh, you're on the track and field team. What event do you run?" And you're like, "Bro, we don't do that." It's crazy how I think a lot of the times when we think of track and field and sport in general, we think of the running element because that's just for whatever reason what comes to mind, and we forget about the throws, the pole vault, some of these other events that are just as impressive, if not more impressive, in my opinion. And I think the fact that we forget about them kind of, hides a lot of opportunity from people that way. I mean, think about, just thinking about your story. It's like, man, if you had to be the one who was just running every meet, would you have kept with track and field? Because it sounds like you're like me in the sense that running might not be your favorite thing in the world.
No, it's definitely not. So I definitely agree with you though. I feel like a lot of the time our field events are overshadowed by the sprints because I mean, honestly, sprints are easier to watch. Like you go, you sit for like a few races and then it's done. With like field events, you could be there for hours. I could be competing for up to 3 to 4 hours straight, just depending on how long the meet is going. So I get it, but it is kind of being hard being in a sport where your event specifically is just always pretty overshadowed by everything else.
Absolutely. And like I mentioned, it's a wicked impressive event to watch. And it's one of those things that I think as I watch it, I'm like, man, I could never do that. I don't know how y'all master that whole like twist flip thing in the air and all. Like it is insanely impressive to watch. And I also just watching it feel like there'd probably be a fear effect at first, or at least if I was going to try it, I would be freaking scared. I'm like got this like pole in my hand running like straight ahead towards the thing that way. Like I think there would be a fear factor element, at least for me, involved with that. So what's the kind of mental side of the pole vault look like for you that way? How do you go about prepping for, your routines and all that sort of thing? And how have you developed that over time?
Yeah, honestly, that's a great question because last year and freshman year as well, I was dealing with probably the worst mental block I've ever gone through in my life. I had some when I did gymnastics where I just wasn't able to do a skill and it was hard, but this was to the point where I was in practice and I did not take up a single jump. Like I would just run down the runway and I don't know if I was scared or if my body just wasn't responding or what was going on, but I went basically a year and a half straight without taking up a single jump in practice. But then we would get to a meet and the bar would go up and I would miraculously jump at the bar and be like, what is happening? Why can't I do this in practice? So it's a great question because this year has finally been the year where I was able to kind of get over that. And what I realized is it's really just a sense of confidence. Like I didn't really change anything about my vault or my approach or anything. It was just getting on the runway and being like, I can do this. I know I can do this. I'm gonna take up this jump. And I think that's so important. It's just believing in yourself and, hoping and believing that nothing's gonna go wrong because you are a professional, you know what you're doing, and just, I don't know, worrying about everything that could possibly go wrong is not gonna set you up for success.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, fear is ultimately a liar and it's self-imposed. But because it's self-imposed, meaning you created it yourself, it also means that you kind of have to be the one to beat it back and destroy it, which obviously is easier said than done that way. What kind of things did you lean into and what kind of things made the most difference for you as you were kind of beating back that like plateau or mental obstacle, if you will?
Yeah, honestly, for a while there, I was really questioning if I even wanted to pole vault anymore because I was like, I'm at the point where I don't know if it's worth it. I'm showing up and I'm doing the drills, I'm doing everything my coach is saying, but things just aren't coming together. But I think for me, what helped me get through that was just sitting there and realizing that, like, no, I chose to do this, so I'm going to follow through with it and being able to push through all of those hardships. And honestly, my faith has been a big aspect of it too because we're all human. We're all going to fail. It's inevitable that humans are going to fail. That's just honestly how it is. And the one thing that won't fail is God. And that is something that I've had to learn is if I just lean on myself and try and think that I can do everything on my own, like I'm just going to be upset all the time because that's not actually how it works.
Oh,
I I
yep.
am very limited and by myself I can't get that done. So being able to put those fears and anxieties into God is kind of something that helps guide me and bring me more confidence, just even in pole vault and life in general.
Absolutely. That comes up so often on the podcast when I'm working with athletes, whether that be, they're recovering from some crazy injury, whether that's ACL or something along those lines, or they're just talking about their sport and the success in general, as it seems like this element of faith is a key hallmark piece for so many athletes that way. And some of them have gone as far to say that's the foundation that holds everything up. And without it, they wouldn't be where they're at today. And to me, understanding that, at least for myself, the definition of faith is having complete trust and confidence in someone or something that's unseen, right? You can't see it, you can't physically see it with your own two eyes. It's not worldly or earthy, but you know it's there and you know it's going to happen. And to me, that's literally sport in a nutshell, right? It's like if you've
Hmm.
vaulted 13 feet and you want to get to 14 feet, you know what that end goal is, but you haven't accomplished it yet. You can't see it, but you believe in the path there. You can't necessarily see it, you can't measure it, but you know it's there. So I think having this element of faith and having, some kind of religious practice that way. And, I'm very open to say I'm a little biased in the sense that I believe in the Christian faith, and that's something I'm not ashamed to admit by any means. But I think having that element as part of your practice, that spiritual element is just so essential and so overlooked, right? A lot of times when we talk about health, we talk about the physical, the mental, the emotional, and all these different things, which is great. But I think the spiritual is what kind of blends all of that together, if you will.
Oh yeah, and I mean it helps with your self-worth and self-image because when you're not doing well in your sport, if that's all you have, you're not doing well mentally, physically, anything in between because that's how you're basing your worth. But if you can base your worth in something greater than you, that stuff doesn't affect you as much. Like, yeah, it's upsetting if I go and no height out of meet, but I'm not gonna sit there and think that, oh wow, I am a failure, because that's just not true.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And on that point as well, as you mentioned, you're going to come up short at times. You're going to fail at times. That's just how life happens. But for a lot of people, they fail and failure is what stands. They never move past it. They never revisit it. They just come up short in some moment and that's it. And I think understanding some of the different teachings that come from a faith-based background that way, as you mentioned, as you outlined, help equip you to overcome those times when things don't necessarily go your way because you realize that there might be a reason it didn't go your way. It's not all about you at the end of the day. Maybe there's some kind of higher power, higher purpose that's kind of behind the whole thing that way. And maybe it's actually a good thing that it didn't go your way, which it takes a lot to start to think like that. And I'm by no means perfect at it myself, but I've started to kind of embrace this concept of thinking like when things don't go as I planned, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe there's something bigger and better in the works that I can't quite fathom and can't quite comprehend. And this failure is actually teaching me something, or it's an opportunity to make myself better. So I think the more you kind of reframe your mindset around failing, and I think again, faith plays such a key role in that. I think the better off you're going to be long term, not just in athletics, but even into the human element of this whole thing as well, because I think a lot of people forget you'll have lives outside of sports sometimes.
Yeah, we definitely have those.
Tell me more about what life outside of sport looks like for you, Tenley. Obviously, track and field, pole vault in particular, is a big part of your life that way. What else do you like to do? What other things kind of get you going and get you out of bed outside of track and field?
Yeah, so I am an accounting major right now, which honestly takes up majority of my other free time, unfortunately. Um, but I also have a cat named Sushi, and he is the cutest thing to ever exist. So I spend a lot of time with him. Um, I also have some really great friends. I have a great boyfriend. Honestly, my free time is just spending time with people I love and care about and, trying to get that time in because there's really not that much of it.
Absolutely. It sounds like you've got this really good like just group of people around you that way. And I guess we should throw your cat sushi in there as well. Great people and animals around you that way as well. I gotta ask, what's the motivation behind the name sushi? Is that like a favorite food group or
Yeah, honestly, sushi is my favorite food. He's also, okay, so salmon sushi is actually like my favorite food of all time. And I have an orange cat. And so when I saw him, I was like, oh my gosh, he looks like salmon sushi because he's kind of like orange on the top and white on the bottom. And so I was like, oh my gosh, his name should be sushi.
I love that. I love everything
Yeah.
about that. And I think having a great group of friends and people and animals around you in this case is so essential for just this more like I call it like living a good life, right? Just happiness and purpose and just all these senses that come with life. And I feel like for a lot of athletes I talk with, that can be very difficult for them to balance because they understand the demands of, playing, participating in a D1 level sport, and they understand the training and the rigors that go into that. And I find a lot of times athletes have difficulty balancing that like life, good life, happy life kind of thing with sport. And I think that you can have both. And I think they should go hand in hand together that way. Tell me a little bit more about how you're able to balance all the things you like to do outside of sport with the things that you like to do within the sport that way.
Yeah, honestly, it can be very difficult at times. And I think for me, there's a big balance between when I'm in season and when I'm off season. So, in season is a very crunch time, pretty much traveling every single week for about half a week. It really just depends. So, there, I think my free time is very limited. My like self-care is like, oh, I can watch an episode of my favorite show tonight. Like, awesome, I have time to do that. But I think for me, and what keeps me honestly sane is being able to not go as hard during off season versus when I'm in season. So off season is when I'll see more of my friends. I'll like play pickleball. I'll go on walks. Like I'll do kind of more fun stuff like that so I can get a lot of it in and be kind of chill during that time. And then once I'm in season, it's kind of harder to get that done, but it looks the same just on a way smaller scale, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like when you're out of season, you take some time away from sport to just kind of do whatever you want to do that way. And then
Mhm.
you slowly reintroduce kind of that sport element and then ramp it up towards the season. And then
Yeah.
once season comes around, it sounds like you still have that element of what we'll call balance in this case in your life, but the scale is kind of tipped heavier towards sport and lesser towards kind of everything outside of sport.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, and I'm just very lucky that I have people in my life who understand when I'm in season. Like I'm probably not going to see my friends as much, so it's nice though because I feel very supportive in or supported by my friends and family because they know like season is kind of a crunch time for me, but like I feel like at that moment they kind of decide to help put in more an effort so I don't get lost or busy and too caught up in everything. So it's nice though because normally I'd say it could be more 50-50 when it's off season, but when it's in season, I'd say the people around me kind of do like let's say 70-30. So it's nice that they're able to kind of keep it balanced, but maybe sometimes they're putting in a little bit more to kind of help keep me in it.
Absolutely. And it sounds like they have no issue pouring into you that way. How do you like to give back and pour into others? Because as I probably famously said when we first met that way, my own kind of personal like mantra for life, if you will, is just trying to give back to as many people as I can, right? You can't go through it with a catcher's mitt in both hands. And I think the more you throw back and elevate others around you, the better we all do that way. So, what's your kind of own kind of personal concept of giving back to others and helping others along their journey?
Yeah, I think it really depends for the season in life and if people come into my life that I feel like it would be beneficial for us to like help them figure out some things. Like a lot of it for me right now is like younger girls who are pole vaulters on Instagram, like sending me DMs and being like, hey, this is wrong with my jump, or like, what is wrong with my jump? Can you help me out? And so I think that has been something that has been so rewarding recently because I'm like, I was in their shoes just a few years ago. And I love how they feel like they can reach out and talk to me about it because I would have loved to have that too. I don't think I would have done that in high school because I would have been too scared to, but it makes me feel so happy that these like younger girls who want to go D1, who want to pole vault, are like trying to actively get better, and they feel safe asking me about that.
Absolutely. I love that. Is that something that you kind of see coming up in the future for you is kind of like a coaching element around pole vault?
I don't know if I would ever get into actual one-on-one like coaching or like club or anything. Like I kind of like the way it is on social media right now where like, oh, they can like ask me questions and I can kind of help out in that way, but I don't know if I'd ever want to be like actual sit down coach and have that be what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I find it interesting because some people absolutely want their sport to kind of take over the rest of their life and they want to fully immerse themselves in it, whether that be with coaching or something kind of similar to it that way. And some people, they're just kind of like, you know what? This is my time in sport that way. And afterwards, like, I still want to be involved, but, maybe coaching isn't for me that way. And it sounds like, at least for you, I'd imagine, when this chapter wraps up, you're probably not going to like disappear from the pole vault world entirely, but it sounds like you're probably not going to transition into like a full-time track and field coaching kind of role by the sounds.
Yeah, probably not, but I don't really know where track is going to go after college because there's a chance that I might go pro, kind of just depending on if, my body still feels good, if I'm still jumping high enough to do so. So might be in it for a little longer after college, but we will definitely see.
Tell me about what the professional side of track and field looks like because I feel like this does not get nearly as much attention as it deserves.
Yeah, I feel like that's like hitting the nail on the head. It's like it really doesn't, which is kind of difficult. It's harder to get sponsors and actually hard to make decent money. Like you can go and see pretty much any NFL football player and they're making millions of dollars every year, even if they're just on the bench, which is crazy. But then you have probably the number one track athlete in America and I think they do make six figures, but it's not like millions and millions of dollars like any NFL superstars, and these are people actually going to Olympics and winning medals, and yet it's just so underpaid. And I think it's honestly just because track and field isn't a huge thing in America. Like in Europe, they are a much bigger thing and people actually go to track meets, but in America, honestly, people just don't really care that much about track.
Why do you think that is?
I just think it's a culture thing. Like we're very much like football, basketball. Like I think those are already very prominent sports in our culture, so there's not really room for other ones. And so I think in like Europe and stuff, they don't have football. If they do, it's on like a much smaller scale than what we have in America, and it's not really part of their culture. So they do actually put effort and they care about looking into things like track and stuff, but here, I just think it's so out of the loop, and a lot of football players just do track in high school to stay in shape for football. So nobody's there for like actually track.
Yeah, it sounds like for a lot of people, track and field is not their main thing. And I've even heard that in relation to those on the running side of things as well, right? They do cross country in the fall and they're concerned about cross country. And then they do track and field in the spring to stay in shape for cross country. And then after the college career wraps up, they make a run at kind of like the professional running side of things. They don't necessarily go into professional 100 or 200-meter sprints, most of them go into some kind of more distance running, ultra endurance kind of thing, if you will, that way. Which, to your point, I think it's a shame because I think track and field kind of has this really unique kind of sporting opportunity that way, where I think personally there's something for everyone. It's like, you could be fast, you could be kind of the engine that never stops running. You could be someone who's just really powerful and explosive and wants nothing to do with running. You could be someone who has this like really good sense of body control and awareness. Whatever your own kind of strength and skill set is biased towards, you can find events towards that. And even if there's events that you want to do that kind of play off of those skill sets, but still challenge you and don't come as easily, I think there's a lot of value in that as well. And the nice thing with track is you don't have to be like locked in to one specific event. You can almost kind of, blend them all together and do two or three, or I guess if you're crazy, you could do like a decathlon or something like that. But it's just got this unique element where it kind of provides something for everyone, in my opinion. And I think that's something that I would like to see in sports more going forward is when I watch a sport, it's not just one specific thing. It's kind of something for everyone, if you will.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, even in high school when I started pole vaulting, one of the coaches who helped with jumps, like triple jump and long jump, was like, "Oh, do you want to try a long jump?" I was like, "Sure." And so I long jumped at a few track meets, and then the other coach who wanted me to actually sprint was like, "Oh, well, you're actually going to run the 200 too." So I ran the 200 a couple times. So it's not like I feel like especially in high school, you can literally try any event that you want to. So even me, when I only really wanted to do pole vault, I was still doing two other events just to like do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like you kind of balance it all together that way, if you will. And the other thing I like about track and field too is I feel like you get this team that's big enough that you get a wide array of people and personalities and skill sets, but it's small enough in the sense that it still feels like a community that way as well. At least that's what I've heard from a lot of other track and field athletes is they wouldn't replace their track and field team with anything else. And a lot of them have different sporting backgrounds in the past that way, different sports, and they just feel like the track team is just the most closely kind of tied together and kind of close knit, if you will, that way. So I think there's something powerful about, to your point, even though the sport is overlooked, and I definitely want that to change, it seems like in the moment you all really make the best of the situation and play the cards you're dealt well.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. It's honestly so cool to be on a team where there's so many talented people, but they're talented in such different ways. Like I feel like with certain sports, there's just like kind of like cookie cutter of this is a great athlete and you have to be this way to be a great athlete. And I think it's so cool to be on the track team and being like, oh, that person is great at throws, and there's complete unique reasons that make them good at throws versus what makes me a good pole vaulter. So it really has me gain a greater appreciation for just athletes in general because there's so many things that I never would have thought would make you like really good or really athletic, but here these people are like showing me all these different attributes and characteristics that make them successful, and it's really awesome to see.
Absolutely. And speaking of attributes that make people successful, obviously, as we've been talking, you are highly successful within the sport of pole vault in particular, so much so that you're going to be competing in Oregon very soon. Walk me through a little bit about what you feel helped get you to this point, helped you become successful here that way, and also what kind of advice do you have for others to kind of get to this point in your career?
Yeah, honestly, I am just a very competitive person to begin with. So if I'm doing something, like it's with my whole heart. And I think that's something that I see a lack of sometimes in sports is someone's just like, okay, well, I'm here. I'm just gonna do it because I have to do it, just running through the motions. But I think something that's so important is, you know, trying to reignite that motivation and remember why you're there, which honestly I do struggle with sometimes. It's hard to not get burnt out of something that you're constantly doing, but I think of just staying realistic and trying to remember like what your goals are, what you're trying to do, kind of helps keep that motivation and get you through like every single workout you're going through.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. And what kind of things are you bringing with you into nationals that way that you feel are going to help set you up for success there, whether that's kind of the mindset, the mentality, the training, what kind of things do you feel like really help you lock in for this?
Yeah, honestly, it's weird because it's kind of a feeling that is very hard for me to describe, but when I'm in a competition and when I get on that track, my mind is in a completely different mindset than it is anywhere else. It's like I get in, I like pick up my pole, I get on the runway, and I'm just locked in. There could be like a fire alarm going off or police sirens, and I honestly would not be able to hear it because of how laser focused I am just on the runway. And I've kind of just I honestly am going to call it a gift because I don't really know what else it is, but I've had it really since I've done gymnastics where it was like I'd get on the trampoline and everything was just locked in. And I think that's such a blessing because, every time I get on that runway and I'm ready to compete, it's like my mind and my body knows what it has to do and it's just ready to go.
Absolutely. So you have this ability to just kind of lock in and enter that, what do they call it? Like a flow state almost, if you will?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
And that's just something you've just naturally had. And, it's not something that you had to develop. It was just kind of always there. That's such a gift, in my opinion, because I talk with a lot of people. I mean, I see it myself. Like, there's times when I can lock in and be present and in the moment and have a conversation like this and just be off to the races that way. But there's also times where it's very easy to get distracted. And that's regardless of what I'm doing, whether that's work from a PT standpoint, sometimes even during podcasts, like whatever it is, like I find distractions are very plentiful in today's day and age. And I think
Mhm.
having this ability to lock in and just be present in the moment and kind of live it up that way, for lack of a better way to put it, is really a lost art, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely no stranger to distraction. I have ADHD, so I'm like all the time like looking around, like trying to figure out what's going on or even trying to study for exams. It's like it takes so long for me to actually sit down and get done what I need to get done because it can be so hard. But I mean, even with that, I honestly don't know what it is because the second I get on that runway, I'm just very locked in. I'm like, I wish I had this when it came to school so I could just sit down and study for like 5 hours straight, but I just can't do that.
It's so crazy to hear you say that way because we literally just did a podcast with a girl, another college athlete, D1 lacrosse, and she was mentioning about how she feels like her ADHD is almost like a cheat code to life that way. And she's like, yeah, I can never shut my mind off. It's always going, but because of that, I'm able to do this, do this, do this, and all these different things that way. And I was like, I've never really thought about that. Like a lot of times I think we hear someone's story and hear certain things that way, and we automatically assume it to be in negative context that way, when in reality, it's just a new opportunity presenting itself, right? Like in relation to track and field, for example, there might be someone who hates running, and we might think, well, track and field is not the thing for you. Don't do that, blah, blah, blah. But it's like in reality, it's just a matter of how do we reframe this into something that they're very much here for and they can tackle and accomplish quite well. Quick break because if you're a rehab professional sick of burnout, this could be your answer. Engage Movement's blended practice model is a proven system built by Dr. Ray Gorman, a PT who walked away from the 55-hour-a-week grind and built a blended practice model that doubled his income while working less than 25 hours a week, and he didn't have to rely on the traditional way of selling sessions to do so. It's all about blending remote and in-person services, stacking monthly recurring revenue, and building a business that finally supports your life, not the other way around. This model isn't just theory. Real providers, including myself, are creating lives of freedom and flexibility without being tied to their schedule. And as a listener, you get free access to the complete training. DM my name, Dan, to @RayGormanDPT on Instagram and receive your free breakdown on the model.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree. That's the awesome part is you could probably have any single person walk under the track team and they could find a spot for them. It's not very limited to what type of athletes or what talent they need, honestly.
Absolutely. No, it's very what's the right word? Inclusive or something along
Mhm.
what is we've talked about a lot of different things so far, but one of the things we haven't talked about is kind of the typical practice and physical preparation flow for you all that way. So what's the typical day-to-day look like for you surrounding practice and kind of prep for this incredible sport?
Yeah, so we work out 5 days a week. Normally we vault 3 days a week, and then we do drills 2 days a week. So our vault days are typically Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And within those vault days, we have short run and long run days. And so Monday is a typically short run day. That's just very like technique related. You're not really trying to jump your highest or push huge pulls. Like you're literally just working out the nitty-gritty stuff in your jump. And then Wednesday, Friday are typically long jump days, which is, trying to take that technique that you got on Monday and transferring it over to your full approach. And then Tuesday, Thursday are kind of drill days. The drills we do are just very interesting, so it's kind of hard to explain. Like we have like a high bar, like gymnastics bar that we do stuff on. We have a rope, we have rings. So it's really just a lot of full body workout stuff. We do plyometrics, we do hurdles, box jumps, all that type of stuff. So it's pretty much a very all around body workout type of sport.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And I think it's so essential to have that element of what I call part whole approach in practice, where you're kind of doing the whole thing, right? The pole vault and that sort of thing. But then you're also having this element that you break it up into pieces, if you will, to kind of complete the entire puzzle. I think it's essential to have those kind of separate elements that way. And I think that often leads to the best performance and the best confidence within the sport as well. Because as we mentioned before that way, it's not just a matter of physical preparation, because obviously you're a D1 level athlete, you've been a gymnast, you have this physical preparation thing down, in my opinion. It's also just kind of that mental confidence and belief in everything that comes together to ensure that you are locked in and going to be successful when the time comes around.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree. And one thing that has really helped me with kind of the mental side is at the beginning of off season, I got like a little notebook that stays in my track bag and I write down like my goals for the practice, like the jumps I took, what I needed to work on in the jumps, like all my different marks so I know exactly where I was and where I'm at in each practice. And I think that it seemed like it would help the physical side, but I think that helped my mental side more because it helped me get everything I was physically doing just onto paper so I could go back and look at it, look at my goals, see if I accomplished those goals. Also, look at like where I was jumping from, what pole I was jumping on. And so, if I'm ever unsure about it in the future, I can just go back a few pages and be like, oh, I did this last week. I can just start on this. And so there's nothing I really have to like second guess, which is honestly essential to feeling confident about that stuff.
Right, because you can choose between different pole sizes, like you can go up, you can go down, that sort of thing, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
different variables and things you can change.
Yeah, there are honestly like a million different variables to pole vault, which makes it fun, but also pretty difficult.
And I feel like, yeah, to your point, that's definitely a unique challenge, but that is something that makes it fun, is this constant questioning of what can I do today to help me perform at an elite level or at the most elite level I can that way. And I think having that kind of process of journaling and self-reflection definitely plays a key role in that. Is that something that, as you mentioned, you've kind of got your journal that way? Is that something you just kind of like word vomit stuff onto and kind of go back later? Or is there kind of like a process that you've developed from a journaling standpoint?
Yeah, I think mainly how I use it is I'll open it up each day, put like the date, and if it's meat, like put whatever meat it is. And my first thing I write down are my goals. And so I'll just keep it pretty brief. Honestly, it's like 2 to 3 bullet points of just like the main things I want to focus on. And this doesn't have to be like actual jumping goals. It could be like, oh, make sure to have fun. Like, make sure that you remember to drink water, like random stuff like that. But I honestly go in, write down like my 2 to 3 top goals because especially in a meet setting, it's kind of hard to remember a million different things to do. So I kind of just try and keep it to like the very important things. And then I'll like write down all of my jumps. And like I said, it's mainly pretty concise. I keep it down pretty short. And so I'm not sitting there super long working on it. But if I wanted to go back and read it, I write enough to where I get an idea of like where my headspace was at, what my jumps were looking at.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great to kind of have that like framework and kind of journal that you can look back upon and reference in the future that way. I think that's absolutely essential. And again, I think that's a practice that should be developed by more people, myself included, right? It doesn't matter what your goal is, whether that's sport or high achieving in life or whatever it is that way. I think if you have that framework and you take these lessons that sport can teach you on performing at a high level, the sky is really your limit, and you can just kind of go out and do anything or anything and everything that life throws at you.
Oh, yeah, no, I definitely agree.
And I feel like, at least for you, knowing you've got that background in accounting and that's kind of where you're heading in the future that way, knowing you've got the sport background, you're definitely destined for phenomenal things in life post college that way. What's kind of on your like bucket list for after college, or what kind of things do you really want to go out and be able to accomplish following your time at university that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I want to travel a lot. So I really want to get into the point where I'm like financially free enough to just travel and see the world a little bit. It doesn't have to be like, oh, quit my job and travel year round full straight. Like nothing like that. But I think being able to see the world would be super fun. And that's kind of cool. That's another opportunity with possibly going pro in pole vault is they have a whole European league over there called the Diamond League, and it's the most competitive track and field league there is to compete in. And so I think a huge goal with that would be being able to compete there and live in Europe for a little bit and just travel around, which honestly would be a lifelong dream. So,
Absolutely. No, I think it would be absolutely incredible for you to get that opportunity to travel and see the world and just kind of live it up at the next level that way. And I think that's something that once you start, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to stop. As I, for the longest time, was like, oh, I don't want to travel. I don't want to go anywhere. I just felt like a bit of a homebody, if you will. And then I started to go places and I was like, you know what? This ain't so bad. This is pretty good. This is pretty fun. And now I'm looking at my month of June here and I've got like four different flights and I've got a train booked. And it's like, well, if you asked me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have expected to be here. But I think once you get a taste for some of these different things in life, and they're good things, mind you, it becomes this, I wouldn't say addiction because I feel like addiction has a negative connotation, but it's just one of those things that you just don't want to go without in life because life is far too short to not have it in the picture. And I think it leads to this evolved line of thinking where it's like, how can I get this in my life for the rest of, as long as I want it to be there, if you will. And it sounds like, at least for you, you can certainly do that through pole vaulting, but I think you're also going to be able to find ways to do it even beyond pole vaulting, even after a professional career that way, if you'd like. It's just a matter of what's important to you, and then how can you find a framework that allows you to pursue those things.
yeah, I definitely agree. And I was so blessed when I was younger. My parents loved going on trips. So we traveled pretty much every summer just as a family together. And so I feel like that's where I got my little taste and itch to wanting to travel again. And so I look back on those family trips and just have such fun memories. And I'm like, I want to create that for my own family someday.
Absolutely. What other impact did your family have on you getting to this point in your life, Tenley?
Yeah, honestly, they have been my foundation, and honestly, my dad has been through it the most, I would probably say. I mean, last year when I was not doing well, I would like call him bawling after practice and be like, "Why is this happening? Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, please help me fix it." And so he was just very gracious and would listen to me when I was pouring out my heart. And I think that was just honestly something I needed at that time. And even now, like if I have a good practice or something goes well, like he's the first person I call. I'm like, oh, guess what happened today? And he's
That's
always like, thank you for calling. Like it's so nice to hear from you. So I think that has been he really helped get me through a lot last year, him and along with my grandma too. Her and I call like once a week for probably over an hour every week, which is so nice. And her and my grandpa also travel to a bunch of my meets, and my dad has actually come to every single track meet, which is so awesome.
that's
So it's great to have people who really just continue to show up for me in that way.
that is absolute life goals right there. Give it 25, 30 years from now. And when I've got kids in college playing sports that way, because they will be playing sports. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what sport. I'm not picky, but they'll play sports. Uh, Definitely need to find a way to get to all of their events that way, wherever they are. That's just such an incredible thing that way, because you guys travel all over the U.S. from what I remember.
Oh yeah, I mean just this year we've been to Florida, we've been to Virginia, we've been to Kansas. Like we go all over the place and he never fails to make that happen. So it's so sweet and I can just always count on hearing him cheer for me when I'm on the back of that runway. So
Absolutely. I love everything about that. What's because I realized as we're talking, in the back of my mind, I've got this context of outdoor track and field, not indoor, but obviously there's an indoor element as well. And you guys travel through the winter and all that sort of thing. Is there anything different about indoor versus outdoor track for you on the pole vault side of things?
yeah, honestly, weather. Like it's something that you wouldn't, I don't know, like seems obvious, but being a pole vaulter and wind specifically can screw you over so hard. It could be that's something I've had to learn a lot this season is we've dealt with some crazy winds and even at our outdoor conference meet just I think 2 weeks ago, the wind was crazy and it was like swirling and the gusts were up to 40 miles an hour and trying to pole vault with gusts that high is so difficult because it can just blow your pole right over. and it's really not fun to deal with. So honestly, being like physically tough enough and mentally tough enough to deal with the weather is something that I've been really trying to learn this outdoor season.
I would imagine that's quite a challenge. My goodness, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's honestly pretty crazy. And for that to happen at our conference meet, I mean, it was everyone was struggling. So
Oh my goodness, yeah, and I would assume that that's just a great example of some of the things we discussed so far, right? It's like life is going to throw some unique obstacles your way, and you got to decide how you're going to respond to them and rise to the occasion. Which was it that meet that you set the like almost 15-foot pole vault or 4.5 meter pole vault, or was it the one before that?
no, it was the one before that. I wish it was that meet. But it was the one right before it.
What was that feeling like when you wrapped up and they told you the height that you had just cleared, or you probably knew the height it was going to be? What's
Yeah.
that feeling like immediately afterwards?
I mean, honestly, it doesn't feel real half the time. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I just did that. I'm like, that's awesome. But it's just, I feel like this year especially, I have felt so much gratitude and I just feel so blessed to be in the position I am because especially of having such a difficult past 2 years, it's like even every meet for me is just a blessing to compete. I feel grateful even if I'm not jumping that high or PRing because I'm like, you know what? I'm strides ahead of where I was last year, like mentally, physically. So even if I'm not jumping the highest, like it just feels so nice to like be back and be able to compete. And so I think that's one thing. It's like, yeah, it was awesome jumping 14.9 and a half, but I'm also like, it's awesome jumping any other time too.
Absolutely. It's always awesome to have the opportunity to do that. And I think that mindset that you've developed helps you to realize like how many people would just do anything to be at the level that you're at. But also, as you mentioned earlier, the inspiration effect that you have on the next generation, right? You mentioned about how there's a bunch of different girls, middle school, high school, and beyond that way, reaching out to you for advice, coaching tips, that sort of thing. And it's like, what a blessing it is to be able to have that level of impact and leave that kind of legacy on the sport, right? Even if hypothetically like 14 and change is, your highest jump ever, it's like the amount of people that you're able to push towards that higher ground of life that we talked about metaphorically earlier, just from your impact in the sport so far is just such an incredible blessing. And I think sometimes that's what we need to kind of remember is while the outcomes are great, while the wins are great, sometimes it's not just about the winning on the field, it's the winning off the site of competition and all the people that we get to that metaphorical higher ground of life that I've referenced a couple times.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And while pole vault itself has been such a great time for me, like it has also helped me grow in many other aspects of my life that I never would have thought. Like honestly, I used to deal with super bad anxiety, and somehow being able to face my fears with pole vault has helped me conquer some of that just in my personal life as well. So it's just crazy the amount of lessons you can learn from sports that translate directly into your personal life that you would have never thought.
Absolutely. No, 100%. And I feel like we could probably talk about this all day long, Tenley. Is there anything that we missed in our discussion today around pole vault and your kind of life journey?
No, I honestly don't think so. I feel like we got a pretty good overview of everything.
Awesome. For people who want to find out more about you, catch you online and that sort of thing, where can they find you at?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at Tenly Kuhn along with my TikTok, and I also have a website, tenlykuhn.com, if y'all want to find out more information or reach out about anything.
That is awesome. We'll link to all of that in the description below. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just click there and see everything that Tenley is up to. Tenley, this was amazing. I really appreciate your time and insights, and I wish you the best of luck in Oregon next week.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.